All right, I'm calling the meeting at 6:30. Welcome to the Wareham Conservation Commission meeting of Wednesday, February 3rd, 2021. We have Ron, Carol, Mary, Sandy, Michael, and Kwame. Am I missing any members?
I don't think so.
I'm Annie. Can you hear me? And I'm new to Zoom meetings, so maybe I'm not doing something right.
You should mute yourself, please, because right now I'm just making a polling of who I have for members.
Okay.
And we will ask for comments later on each one of the projects. Then you can unmute yourself and speak to a project, okay? All right. Oh, hi, Kathy and Nancy. You're on a lot of our meetings. Thank you. All right, we're ready to go. Is Alyssa here?
I didn't see her.
No, she's not on. So I can read the hearings if she's not on board.
You want me to, or do you want to?
Well, if you have them, then
I
fine.
have them. Okay. Pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, in the Wareham Wetland Protective Bylaw, Division 6, a public hearing will be held on Wednesday, February 3rd, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. on the request for determination of applicability for Parkwood Beach Association, Inc., P.O. Box 558, East Wareham, Mass. 02538, for beach nourishment located on Assessor's Map 38, Lot 10020, Parkwood Drive, Wareham. Is there anybody here that wants to speak for this project?
Yes, James Lupino here. Can you hear me?
Yes. Okay, thank you, James. Mr. Bichette will read to this project.
Okay, I'm just pulling up some information here. Hold on one second.
This is something we've done
Sorry,
before.
Sandy.
Do I hear Alyssa?
I'm Elisa here.
Okay, I know I missed, but Elisa, I tried. So. Dave's pulling up the paperwork.
Great.
Okay, Anita, can you put yourself on mute, please?
Sure. Right.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah, got it. Thank you.
Okay. So this project site is in Parkwood Beach on Parkwood Drive, and the project involves the placement of sand for beach nourishment at 2 locations in Parkwood. It's proposed to place 12 yards of sand and 6 yards of sand respectively on the main beach and the side beach at these sites respectively. The sand would be placed above the high tide line and spread by hand over the beach area. This volume of sand within these areas is a relatively small amount and would not significantly change the grade of the beach. The sand would have to be compatible with the existing beach sand. So as we've always done, I would recommend that a sieve analysis be required to be submitted to the commission showing the compatibility of the source material with the existing sand. This sort of an activity is something that the commission has approved several years ago at the site, and it's sort of a maintenance type issue, and it hasn't been done in a while, and so they're asking for permission to place this volume of sand. So I would recommend the approval of that work with the issuance of a negative termination number 2, with the added condition for the sieve analysis to be submitted as part of the process.
Dave, spell that for me. Sieve?
SCIVE. I mean, SIEV, excuse me.
David, are we doing both together?
No.
Okay.
And how do they get this sieve analysis? They must know.
Yeah, they just have to take a sample and then bring it to a place that does that sort of analysis, and then they can compare the two materials.
Okay, one from each of the beach areas and one for the sand to be loaded.
Correct.
Anything to add?
Are you talking to me, Ms. Sullivan?
Yes. Yep. Mhm.
No, we've done it before in the past. It's the same process for us, and we've staked out the areas at the beach, and we're ready to submit the sieve analysis.
Okay, when did you put the stakes out?
Right before the snow. There's a few still out there. They're red flags. I don't know if anybody made it down there, but I checked it this morning. The ones on the side beach were 2 were still there, and I restaked it, but it was frozen below, so I think they blew away. But anyway, the front beach was staked, and the side beach was. I noticed those 2 had blown, but
Because I was down Monday and I didn't see anything, but we've done this beach before.
yeah, Monday, right? It was. Let me think.
Just as the snow started.
Yeah, exactly. We got buried.
Okay.
But anyway, it is the same
Thank you.
location you were at before, and you're correct for the front
Right.
beach.
Questions from the board? Elissa?
No questions. I saw the stake or 2.
Ron?
No question.
Carol? Mary?
No question, the area was staked.
And I have nothing. Michael?
It seems pretty basic. I got nothing here.
Kwame?
No questions. I saw the stakes too as well.
Is there anybody on the line that would like to speak for or against this project?
Hi, this is Sharon. I'm in Parkwood and working with Jamie as well. Just wanted to make sure, I did see the stakes as well. Just wanted to make sure what we call Bayside Ave.
That's next on it, Sharon.
Oh, perfect. I'll wait. Thank you. I appreciate the efforts and
Yeah.
community. Thanks you.
Yeah, this is the ones that are off. We're looking at the one off Teakwood. Is it Teakwood? Yes, and the one off on the main one. So
That's correct. Just Parkwood Beach,
Perfect.
Main Beach.
The Parkwood Beach Drive, 2 beach areas. So is
The
there
next one-
anybody else?
Separate.
Hearing none?
I move to close the hearing.
I have a motion to close the hearing. I heard a second. All in favor, Alyssa?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Carol? Mary?
Yes.
Sandy? Yes, the hearing is closed.
I move with a -2 to accept this project
Second.
With the sieve analysis.
with, of course, the sieve analysis.
Thank you.
Okay, I
have
second that
and
motion.
I have a motion and a second. Alyssa? Ron?
Yes.
Carol? Mary?
Yes.
Sandy? It's done. So you have to wait for your testing and then contact Dave when you finished it and see if there's anything else you need to do before you can load the sand. Thank you.
Thank you,
Notice
Mrs.
of
Chairman.
public hearing. Pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protective Bylaw, Division 6. A public hearing will be held on Wednesday, February 3rd, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. on the request for determination of applicability for Parkwood Beach Association, Inc., P.O. Box 558, East Wareham, Mass. For beach nourishment located on Assessor's Map 38, Lot 10040, Bayside Ave, Wareham, Massachusetts.
Thank you. Is there anybody here to speak for this project?
Just myself again, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Bichette?
So this project is also in the Parkwood area, but at a different location, which is at what's called Little Beach off of Bayside Ave. And this project is the same. It's for beach nourishment. And it's proposed to place 6 yards of sand on this beach area, again, above the high tide line. And all the material is to be spread by hand over that upper area of the beach. Again, it's a relatively small volume of sand and will not significantly change the grade or profile of the beach. And again, the sand would have to be a compatible material. So as with the last project, I would recommend the approval of it with a negative determination number 2, with the added condition for the sieve analysis.
Thank you. James, anything to add?
No, again, this one was staked at the same time, and we're looking forward to adding the sand to this one. It's been quite some time in this area here.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing this one before.
It's been a long time, and we have actually sustained some storm damage where they just kind of filled in, moved it around, so it has really degraded this area right here.
Thank you. Okay, questions on the board? Elissa?
None.
Ron?
None.
Carol? Mary?
No question.
Michael?
No questions here.
Kwame?
No questions. Thank you.
Sandy? I have none. Is there anybody on the line that would like to speak for or against this project?
Move to close the hearing.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to close the hearing. Alyssa?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Carol? Mary?
Yes.
Sandy? Yes, the hearing is closed.
Motion to accept the project with a negative determination 2 and pending the results of the sieve test.
Second.
Thank you. And I heard a second. All in favor, Alyssa?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Carol? Mary?
Yes.
Sandy? Yes. Project is done. James, as before, speak to Mr. Bichette after you get your sieve analysis and before you do the project, okay?
Very good. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Notice of public hearing pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protective Bylaw, Division 6. A public hearing will be held on Wednesday, February 3rd, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. on the request for determination of applicability for Elizabeth Larner, care of Zenith Consulting Engineers, Inc., 3 Main Street, Lakeville, Mass. 02347. To upgrade a septic system located on Assessors Map 43, Lot 1055, 8 Knowles Avenue, Wareham, Massachusetts.
Thank you. Is there anybody here representing this project?
Will Connolly, Zenith Consulting Engineers.
Thank you, Will. Mr. Bichette?
Yeah, so this project is at 8 Knowles Ave, and this project involves upgrading a septic system at this site in a coastal flood zone. The existing Title V system is to be replaced with a new Title V nitrogen-reducing septic system. The septic system itself is outside the buffer zone to the edge of wetlands. So it's a relatively routine project in terms of a septic upgrade at this site. There's some minor grading to be done around septic tanks and the leach field as shown on the plan. And they are proposing to put erosion control between the work and the wetland, which is off property to the south. So again, I would recommend the approval of this project with a negative determination number 2.
Thank you. Will, is there anything you want to add?
No, thank you. I think you pretty much covered everything there. It's a fairly simple repair, so if there's any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Okay, I'll ask the board. Elissa? Ron?
No questions.
Carol? Mary?
No question.
Michael?
Yeah, thank you.
Kwame?
No questions. Thank you.
I have none. I didn't visit the site, and thank you for staking it out for us. Is there anybody on the line that would like to speak for or against this project? Hearing none?
Motion to close the hearing.
I have a motion to close the hearing. I heard a second. All in favor, Elissa? Ron?
Yes.
Carol? Mary?
Yes,
Sandy? Yes, the hearing is closed.
I move to accept the project with a negative determination 2.
second,
Thank you. And I heard a second. All in favor, Elissa?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Carol? Mary?
Yes.
Sandy? It's approved for a -2. And Will, before you start any work, get all your paperwork from Mr. Bichette before you start the work, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have a notice of public hearing pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protective Bylaw, Division 6. A public hearing will be held on Wednesday, February 3rd, 2021, at 6:30 PM on the notice of intent for Peak Contractors LLC, care of JC Engineering, Inc., 2854 Cranberry Highway, East Wareham, Mass. 02538.
You want to finish?
Oh, I guess I will. Yes, that'll be good. To construct a single-family dwelling located on Assessor's Map 54, Lot 4, 150 Cremisa Road, Wareham, Massachusetts.
Thank you. Is there anybody here that will speak for this project?
Good evening, Brad Bertolo, JC Engineering.
Hi, Brad. Excuse me. My husband left his phone. Mr. Bichette, you want to bring it up and start talking about it?
Sure. This project location is at 150 Cremisa Road, and the project involves the construction of a single-family dwelling in the buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland and within a coastal flood zone. 26 by 36 foot dwelling is proposed within coastal flood zone AE elevation 16. There are grade changes proposed around the foundation area to fill up around the foundation. The dwelling would be accessed by a shared driveway with the neighboring lot. This dwelling would have town sewer and town water. Hay bales and silt fence would be installed between the work and the resource area. The proposed limit of work would be approximately 46 feet away from the edge of the wetland. But there is a section of wooded area within the limit of work that's proposed to have selective tree cutting and mowing of the underbrush. So it's kind of identified in this part of the property right here.
Can you point to that, David?
It's right within this section right here.
Okay.
So I did speak to Brad about that, and I do think there needs to be a little bit more clarification as to what level of work is envisioned within that area. So I'd like to kind of make sure we're clear on that. But that work is still outside the 30-foot no activity zone. So I do think it would be appropriate. It's just, it'd be nice to have some better detail as to what they fully propose to do there. Also proposed is a footpath down to the edge of the marsh. This should be a natural ground path, meaning not surfaced with any gravel or anything like that. I do not have a DEP file number, or I had not received one prior to the meeting, so I would recommend a continuance of the hearing to the next meeting, which is February 17th, for additional information about the selective cutting work and the DEP number.
Brad, anything to add?
No, I agree with Dave. We did speak, and we talked about the few questions he had, specifically in the area of the mowing of the brush. We're well aware that there was going to be continued. So over the next, hopefully 2 weeks prior to the next hearing, if it's scheduled in 2 weeks, we could try to clarify that, maybe graphically show something if that's appropriate at this time.
Okay. Thank you. Questions on the board? Alyssa?
I sort of just have a question on what trees are selective trees, because it seems to be something that sometimes gets bigger and bigger. And then we had a case where we were talking about the fellow had demolished his underbrush and we had him building it back up again. And, you know, I think we have to be careful not to overdo. In other words, not to give one person free rein to make a path and also everything else, and then cut it from somebody else and say they can't do it. So I think whatever we decide, it's got to be carefully thought out.
I was under the person that we made them restore their underbrush. They did the work within the 30-foot no work zone.
Some
This is-
was and some wasn't it, Sandy?
I'm not, nothing's
I
coming.
thought
to
it was,
mind.
I thought it was all within the zone.
Maybe.
Yeah, I thought it was all within the 30-foot buffer zone. I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying, Alyssa, but I don't know that. I guess we'll just have to wait and see exactly what the scope of the cutting is
Right.
to be able to determine it without having any type of knowledge of what it is yet.
Exactly.
Yeah, because one I'm thinking about that cleared the underbrush was down off of Charge Pond, if I recall.
Well,
But-
we've had a couple, but I think that one on Charge Pond was done entirely within that zone, and he had no approval for that. And so,
Yeah.
yes, that was required to be
But
restored.
if something comes to mind, we will make sure, Alyssa, that we are consistent with our enforcements. Okay, is there any, all right, sorry, Ron, any questions?
Not at this time. I'll wait for the rest of the stuff to come through.
Carol? Mary?
No questions.
Michael?
I don't know if this is gonna fall under a question or not. Well, yeah, I guess. But I was down there earlier today and it seems to be like a very rural part of Cremisa Road. Like, for example, you drive further down the road, you start seeing wildlife sanctuary areas, like maybe like a half mile or so. On your left side of on the left side of the road, as I turned around, again, and then on the other side of the road, maybe 2/10 of a mile down, it's again extremely vegetative area. Do we know if the land that they're proposing to develop falls under any wildlife sanctuaries by any chance? That's just what I'm curious about.
No, this is just a privately owned lot. So no, it does not fall within any special designation.
All right, I was just curious that. Thank you.
Kwame?
No questions right now. Thank you.
Brian, Brad, how are you going to identify the selective cutting of what trees?
I spoke to Dave this morning about it, and a lot of times we're thinking that the white pines may be a species that we'd like to remove. Maybe not all of them, but enough that helps open some view. We didn't feel appropriate to propose a grass area that full length. It is outside the 30-foot buffer zone in an area that could be permitted under your bylaws. We felt that the grass line or tree line as shown on plan was a modest backyard for this property owner, and the rest of the area he'd like to, prune and clean up. But all that area is within all of it's in your jurisdiction, being in a flood zone.
So you're looking at trimming out, thinning out the white pines, any diseased or dead hardwood, that type of thing, anything tree that's damaged, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Sandy, can they spray those? Just put a little mark on them? Or is it just too many with it so small? There's such thin ones and stuff. I know it's kind of a tough area.
Well, we're going to evaluate it over the next couple weeks to determine if I can locate them and graphically show them, or if it's something that we can just mark up in the field.
Okay.
I thought it'd be appropriate if a condition was placed on it that before work is done in this area, the agent would have his review completed and basically get his blessing on removing trees.
That would be great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, is there anybody on the call that would like to speak for or against this project?
Move to close the hearing.
No, we need to
Nope.
continue until February 17th,
you're right.
please.
So I guess I'll move to continue the hearing.
Second.
Until 17th, and I heard a second. All in favor? Alyssa,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Carol,
I
Mary.
just got back. I was offline.
Okay, and Sandy, yes, the hearing is continued until February 17th. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, this next one.
Notice of public hearing. Pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protective Bylaw, Division 6. Public hearing will be held on Wednesday, February 3rd, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. Notice of intent for Jim Duffy, care of Grady Consulting LLC, 71 Evergreen Street, Kingston, Mass. 02364, to construct an addition and to install landscape features located on Assessors Map 22, Lot B, 46 Winship Ave, Wareham, Mass.
Thank you. Is there anybody here to speak for this project?
Yes, Rick Grady and Jim Duffy's on the call as well.
Thank you.
Sandy, is this the one that we had a conversation about yesterday?
Oh, yes. So we'll
Okay.
have Ms. Bichette speak to this project.
Yes, so this project site is at 46 Winship Ave in the Burgess Point area, and the project involves the construction of additions, patios, and a stormwater rain garden, the buffer zone to a coastal bank at the site. Site alterations within the buffer zone have already been started at the site without the issuance of the order of conditions. There's land that's been disturbed on the coastal bank and also within the 30 feet to the coastal bank. Also, 3 additions are proposed on the plan, and it turns out these additions have already been constructed. So there's a 10 by 12 addition, a 10 by 18 addition, and another 10 by 18 addition as well shown. These were all proposed or constructed over what was previously existing deck around the house. Also proposed is a significant patio area that would extend along the west side of the dwelling and on the edge of the proposed pool. So I did have a question about the square footage of that overall patio area, and also recommend that that be made out of some sort of pervious material, or that drainage be incorporated into the design plan. Also proposed is a rain garden to handle runoff from the driveway. I did have a question as to whether or not there was anything else that's proposed to be tied into that rain garden, or is it just for the driveway? Also, there is no erosion control shown on the plan, although there is erosion control already set in the field. There are hay bales, silt fence that have already been installed. We did get a DEP file number for the project. So at this point, I'd like to hear what the applicant has to say regarding the existing work and some of the questions that I've had, and then we can move on to recommendations.
David, can he also talk about trees that were taken?
I'm sure, I didn't know trees were down, but Rich, why don't you comment on this,
Sure.
please?
Sure, yes, Rick Grady from Grady Consulting. As David mentioned, the additions are within existing porch areas on the front, below an existing roof, actually, on the portion closest to the water. The proposed addition kind of to the lower left of the house there is another infill below an existing porch. And then the addition to the right-hand side, as we're looking at the plan, was over an existing deck. There is erosion control proposed. It's a little bit off the top of the screen as shown right here, but it basically follows the limit of the existing grass on the property. Everything within that existing area was grass when we were doing the survey. The proposed rain garden will collect runoff from the driveway through a trench drain out in the front, as well as the proposed addition and nearest patio. As far as the other patios, we could very easily accommodate some drainage in that. What I would suggest is that we do a kind of a crushed stone and crushed shell mulch on the bushes that are going to be surrounding the patio. It would actually work quite well for the bushes and create an infiltration situation there. As far as the square footage of impervious for the proposed patios, the additions really aren't adding any impervious since they're below existing roofs. For the patios, there's approximately it's about probably 1,600 square feet roughly of proposed patios. And like I said, we'd be glad to direct runoff from the one nearest the rain garden to the rain garden and create some infiltration.
Okay. Any other comments before I ask the board members?
Dave, I have a question.
Yep, you're next. You're next up. I
Oh,
can
I'm
see where the,
sorry. I'm sorry. I
see
didn't
where
hear.
the- sorry, I can see where the trees have gone.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yes. I was construction stopped on this project? Or no?
Well, construction had already been done prior to us even knowing about it. So, no, the additions have been built.
So was there anything charged to them, David?
Not as of yet. That was something I was going to include in my recommendations, that obviously, work was done without the proper approvals, and therefore there should be some fines attached to whatever you decide.
How many buildings were included in this count that you have?
How many additions you mean?
Yes.
There's three additions as shown on the plan around the house right here.
And those are and then you have okay. And the pool isn't within our jurisdiction, is that correct?
Right, the pool is outside the buffer zone. That's
Right.
correct.
Mhm.
Hey, Dave, can you bring up the picture of the front yard?
Yes, hold on one second here.
So I can see that he's going to bring up a picture of the front yard that has been devoid of all material and is just dirt. All the trees have been removed.
Yeah.
All the grass has been removed.
When we
Next to
looked
that-
at this, we asked them if there'd be any tree removal and the response was no.
Who said that?
Early
They did?
on. Yes, early on. That there
We
was-
haven't seen this
that were marked.
project sorry, we haven't seen this project
You've
before.
seen this land, though. You have.
No,
All right, I was there. All right. No,
but the trees are gone. The grass is gone. So I'll go to Ron.
No, I mean, I'm just curious as to, all the work that was completed prior to us even seeing the project. And then obviously there's a lot to, I guess, talk about that. But I don't have any questions about the project in general. I just have questions around that, but I guess we can talk about that after questions about the project itself.
Okay. Carol, anything?
No questions.
Mary,
No question at this time.
Michael,
No questions at the moment, but again, like Ron, I think I'll wait. Thank you.
Kwame,
No questions at this time, but just like Ron said, to see what's going on with the fines in place or whatnot afterwards.
As Dave is bringing that up, Rich, is there any comment you'd like to make about why this land was stripped?
Sandy,
before
were you able
approval?
to see, Sandy, were you able to see the photo or no?
I don't see it.
Oh, you didn't see it when I brought it up? All right, hold on.
No.
Sorry about that. I thought you guys could see it. Hold on.
I don't want to speak for Jim Duffy on that, but I believe there was some confusion when the building permits were issued for the proposed addition. I think there was a miscommunication there on what he believed to be approved versus not approved. And obviously we had not filed with conservation. He is aware of that and accepts responsibility for the fines that the commission is inclined to issue on the project.
That's the front yard, folks. It used to be treed and it used to be grass.
How many
Actually,
how many trees?
Look at the plan. I see, 1, 2, 3. Do I see 4? My glasses are not good in this light. I see at least 4. Jim, how many trees were taken down in the front of the property?
I do have a pretty good series of photos through Matterport here that I can share with you. I'm looking at that same existing tree right there. Would you like me to share what I have here so you can
Yes.
compare?
Yes, please.
Are
I
you
think
looking
somebody
to,
might,
are you
oh, my
looking to,
PC.
are you looking to share your screen?
Yes, the one that says Richard Grady PC. I'm on here with both my iPad and my PC.
All right, you should be able to share.
Oops. So I came a little too far along there. I'm going to move back up here by the previous driveway location here. Is that, I'm sorry, it's not sharing yet. There we go.
So this was before the pool house was put in.
Correct. This was last summer, I would say sometime in July or so.
Okay.
And at that time, I think they were just getting started with some work there and cleaning things out with the dumpster. I know the photo we were just looking at showed this area here is currently obviously not grass, being dirt. I did notice this row of evergreens was
Are
not
still
touched.
there.
I believe that,
Yep.
yep, a row of cedars, I believe. This oak still there.
Yes.
Obviously the bushes around the porch here, I think those were no longer there. The boulder in the front still there. None of the vegetation along the bank, I believe, was touched. This is the area where that addition was bumped out below the porch roof, right up in this area here.
Yeah, so there really wasn't much tree work in terms of anything removed in that lower disturbed area.
Okay.
Right.
It was, as you see, just lawn.
So, Dave,
All
any
right.
I mean, it's needless to say, we're not happy that it was disturbed before we had a chance to put some questions regarding this project. Dave, any comments on restoration?
Well, I think what I would want to see is the area restored to what it previously was, and any grade changes that might have been done down in that area for that to be restored to what it was originally, and then just simply reseeded so that it can get back to a vegetated state as it previously was.
I think that would be a fair condition.
And again, I would recommend the issuance of fines because again, there wasn't really any reason that I could see why that was done in the first place because there was no work proposed over there, so I'm not really even sure why that was even done, but nevertheless, there was no order of conditions to do any of that prior to it being done.
So-
Oh, sorry. Katie.
Go on, Ron. Go, Ron.
So there were 3 additions that were proposed. Can we issue fines per addition, or is it just for the project itself?
Well, I mean, I think that's up to the commission's discretion. I would say, you probably should just issue the fine to the contractor and then to the property owner, both of whom should have known better than to do such work prior to having the proper permitting in place.
Okay,
I got,
I'm
hold
not
on,
sure.
I got a question. Oh, Cindy, I'm sorry. In regards, because there were 3 additions, or at least 3 projects. If we're going to go ahead and start reseeding, do any of the construction equipment from the other projects go onto this land at the moment? So I hate to see some interference from the construction equipment onto this land. Because I believe there's still some construction going on the other 2 projects, correct?
Yeah, I'm sure, Michael, when we ask for restoration, it will be after the construction is completed and the area would be not subject to activity or foot activity, vehicle activity. So nothing would be done right now, only after the project, being the house, is completed and the equipment is gone. We would not ask for restoration right now.
Okay, thank you, Sandy.
Okay, now for the 3 pieces of bump out on the houses, they were done over existing porches, so there was no disturbance of the ground. Is that right, Rich?
They did install, oh,
Yeah, I was just gonna say there was disturbance because they had to put new foundations in for all of those additions. So yes, they did have to excavate that.
Okay. I just thought they would just put it on top of the porches, but they needed to reinforce the porches.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, they actually had to pour concrete foundations.
How many of those additions were in the 30-foot no work zone? Just one, correct?
Yes.
Okay. There was something else I was going to say. Is there, Rich, you made reference to maybe there was some misunderstanding between a building permit and what was done. What was wrong with the building permit that allowed the homeowner to think that, or the contractor to think this work could have been done without conservation approval?
I think when he received the building permit, it caused him some confusion that he said, I think he believed that he didn't have to go to conservation and that he was all set with conservation when he was able to receive a building permit.
Does that come from the homeowner or the contractor?
I believe that was from Jim, who I believe is on the call here as well. Jim, can you speak to that?
I'm not, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So the first I heard of this was today. I got an email from Rick and he said that Jim, conservation was on the property and there's some problems. So I immediately called David and talked with David today. I thought that I had the right to do this. I submitted a permit for it. I received the permit. I've had inspections on the foundations. I'm not the type to just try to pull the wool over people's eyes, and that's not me. And I got 4 different permits here, and I've takeout kitchenette, record at the registry. I've had to do a sprinkler code. I have architects. I've submitted every time anybody's asked me for anything from the inspection department, I have submitted it. So I was told that anything that's under an existing structure, you have the right to build on it. I'm as shocked right now as anyone else. You guys don't know me. It's the first time in Wareham, but like I said, I told Dave today that I thought I was in the right to do it. I thought I had the right to do that under an existing porch. And like I said, I've had foundations that we're talking about inspected.
Okay.
So I guess what
I'm sorry, Warren. I guess I was more concerned as what in that building permit, was there a disconnect between conservation and the removal of the lawn? I mean, it's just, I understand that there was some confusion over the building of the 3 bump outs expansions.
Well, and that, as you guys proposed, that's the dirt from the foundation. On the foundation that we dug out, we had to go down and put in a footing, and a lot of that dirt got pushed off to the side. Again, I'll make amends on that. I just thought I had the right to do it. That's all I can tell you.
Okay.
I wouldn't have foundations inspections if I didn't think I had the right.
All right, Ron, you had a question.
Well, no, I was going to where you were going, Sandy, with, okay, if you thought that the building of the additions was the right based off of how everything is, all of the land that was disturbed going down to the water is completely different. I mean, that's, that's not really next to, where the work is being completed. So that's what I would point out with Sandy also, is that, okay, if there's a disconnect there, but basically all of that lawn doesn't really exist anymore, which is, not a small amount of space. So that's kind of more where the issue, I guess, will lie with the issue now, is all the work, whether it was laying out, some dirt from a dug up foundation or whatnot, it's still work that was completed, regardless of how extensive it was still completed outside of any type of conservation approval or permit for that kind of work.
Okay. Now, Dave Pichette, can we, when we talk about the restoration of the lawn, how much can we determine what can be done, like what type of, I'm sure he can't put a grass on what I'm seeing there. It's all dirt, it's not loam. I'm sure they'll have to put some material down for the grass to grow in.
Yes, so I think what we would want to see is the removal of any of that material that came out of the foundation hole, replace it with loam that's appropriate to get some vegetation growing on there.
Okay, removal of the material from the foundation holes. Placement of loam. And what part of the order of conditions is that we always insist on low nitrogen, help me here. Slow release, low nitrogen, right?
Yes.
Jim, did I hear you say anything about an irrigation system in the front yard?
There currently isn't one in the front yard.
Were you planning one?
If I'm allowed to, yes, if I could. I'm gonna have to talk with Rick, see if it's allowed.
I would say the majority of that would be either in the coastal bank or in the 30-foot no activity zones. I would say that would not be something we would want to see.
Sandy, excuse me, is there anything that, this slope, once he takes off the extra dirt, the slope going down, should this land be protected for the winter so there's not runoff, or is it already protected with silk, whatever, fence?
It has hay bales and silk fence all along the edge of that property, to the north and the south, to the north and the west and the east. There are hay bales all down there.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Could we ask one more question about the irrigation? Would it be okay if they did irrigation outside of the 30-foot no activity zone? It would be helpful if he could get a row of sprinklers in there to restore that grass, and it's going to help vegetate it more quickly. So we're not asking to put it inside the no activity or the coastal bank, but the heads should be able to spray in that direction to help establish the grass.
Well, again, whatever you're going to propose should be represented on the plan. So I would say, that's not necessarily out of the question, but it needs to be represented on the plans. The commission has an accurate record to vote on.
So would ask for a continuation for an update of the plan to show the irrigation system?
Actually, Jim, what are your thoughts on that? Would you prefer to continue to try to show the irrigation, or would you like to skip the irrigation?
We could skip the irrigation. It would be better for me to put in sod.
Above ground sprinkler, okay.
Okay, so you're looking at placement of loan with sod?
I mean, if that's makes it palatable for the board.
Okay. Okay, board, is there anybody on the line that would like to speak for or against this project? Ask the board members if they have any other questions before we close the hearing.
We should talk about the issuance of fines now with amounts, or is that gonna be
No, that
after
would be,
we?
nope, that would be
before we-
part of, we can talk about it
Yeah.
now before we close the hearing.
I mean, I think that, based on the amount of work, I think our limit is a $300 fine for the work anyway. So I think that we need to issue a fine to both the contractor and the homeowner for the work that was done, just strictly off of, that's what we've done for every project without any type of approval. So I think that we need to put it in both directions and not just lay it on the homeowner or the contractor. So it should be both.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Bichette, is there anything else you wanted to add to the order of conditions other than the removal of the foundation dirt, the placement of loam and sod, and was there anything else you wanted to add?
Yes, we did have the issue of the patio and accounting for the additional impervious area that's going to create. So there needs to be some design for the runoff of that.
That can also be made pervious, can it, Dave?
Yeah, if that's what the commission would want to see, then that's a condition you could place. So either some sort of infiltration to account for the volume, or just make the whole thing a pervious paver patio.
Well, so if they went with putting in some type of a system to account for the drainage, wouldn't we want to see what that is before we would approve it? Or would we let that be to your discretion, Dave, once we approve the project itself?
No, I think it is something you probably would want to see ahead of time, just so everybody's clear with it.
Well, they have the proposed rain garden in there.
For part of the patio, but then there's other parts that are not going to go to that.
There has to be additional work to cover the additional square footage to make it a suitable drainage.
Either that, or we say it all becomes pervious.
If it becomes pervious, then we wouldn't have to see a plan for that, because obviously it's just a material. So I guess it's up to the homeowner if he would want to continue for 2 more weeks to come up with the plan, or if he's just going to want to go to a pervious material to account for that.
I think we should, I'd have to talk to the homeowner, and I think we should continue it for a couple of weeks, Rick, unless you think differently.
No, that's fine. I know you guys are thinking about the travertine, which doesn't really lend itself to the pervious patio. So I think we'd probably be better off designing the drainage so that you could stick with the owner's material of choice there.
Okay, thank you.
I did ask if there was anybody who wanted to speak for or against this project, and we didn't hear anything. So a motion to continue until February 17th for a design of the water runoff of the patio. Was that it?
Yes.
Was there anything else included in that, David?
No. So again, at this point, we're just going to continue and get these issues addressed.
Okay. I need a motion.
Continue.
I have a motion I have a motion to continue until the 17th.
Second.
I heard a second. All in favor. Alyssa,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Sandy. Yes. Thank you, Rich and Jim, and we'll see you on the 17th.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
You also.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We are now on to continued hearings, and I lost my agenda.
I think the
my
first
agenda.
one's continued, right? That's Bessie Park.
Yeah, but I'd like Dave to bring that plan up online. We may have some people on the call who would like to see that plan since it was discussed at the selectmen's meetings last night. And there may be some interest into what it looks like.
All right, hold on a moment. Let me get that.
So Sandy, I did I see an email from Derek Sullivan requesting to pull back the notice of intent based on some
Yeah.
things, or is it
Yes.
just going to be continued?
No, you saw that and there was a discussion and he is agreeable to a continuance. I believe we may have some of the people online that want to talk to this project. So we will continue at Mr. Sullivan's request, but I wanted people to see this as it was discussed last night. Dave, can you put the one that has the grass on it?
Is that what you mean?
Nope, the one after, that has all the shaded area that's going to be reloamed and grassed. Reloamed. You got it, that one. Okay. Is there anybody here? Michelle, are you on?
Yes, I'm here. Michelle
Anybody
West
else?
from Horsey Witten Group.
Thank you.
Hi, Michelle, it's Alan.
Hi, Alan.
There was some, there's been a lot of correspondence regarding this project. And Michelle is working with the Board of Selectmen to get on the agenda for Tuesday for them to discuss and look at the particular project. But since this was mentioned last night, I wanted to make sure whoever might be on the line, they can see what is being proposed. Dave, can you read to we're going to continue, but Dave, you want to read to the project and we can have Michelle speak to it?
Cindy, is this the original plan only? We're not talking about what thoughts on the plan to be changed.
No,
This is
the
just
current
has been
plan.
proposed. We don't know where we're going to go with it, but this is what's been proposed. That's all we're going to talk about.
So this project is at Bessie Park, and the project involves the installation of stormwater treatment structures in the buffer zone to a coastal bank and within a coastal flood zone at Bessie Park. In collaboration with the Buzzards Bay National Estuaries Program, the town had proposed to do a stormwater remediation project that would improve the treatment of stormwater coming out of the two existing outfall pipes at Bessie Park. So a new stormwater treatment system has been designed, which would involve the construction of stormwater bioretention basins, an oil grit separator, new manhole structures, and connection pipes. So that was essentially the nature of the project. And again, the intent is to help improve the quality of stormwater that's ultimately going into the river. So I'll go from there with any questions or comments.
Okay. Michelle?
Yes, I actually have just a short presentation with a little more information on this project that might benefit the commission and the public watching, if that would be okay for me to share my screen.
Yes, please.
Great. Okay, let's see if this works. There we go. Are you seeing a presentation?
Yes, we are.
Excellent. So just to expand upon the background of this project and how we got to this point, we are actually working with the Buzzards Bay National Estuary Program, as was pointed out. And this started, they had been doing monitoring with the various towns in the Buzzards Bay watershed, and had picked some top priority sites based on the water quality measured at the outfalls in 5 different towns, as you see here. And they got a grant from the EPA to evaluate these further and take a certain number of them all the way to 100% construction design for the selected projects. So we went to each of these sites and collected data and did assessments and put together some concept designs. And the top sites that were chosen for a variety of reasons were highlighted here, one in Wareham, one in Acushnet, and one in Fairhaven. And these were chosen to move forward through the permitting process, which is where we are now. So I just wanted to give that background of how we came to work with the town on this project.
Okay.
This is the existing conditions out at the site. So many of you, if not all of you, are familiar with this location. But I just wanted to point out, I've highlighted here in orange, the stormwater infrastructure that exists at the site. And you see this, let's see if I can give a little laser pointer here. This area here is a very short stretch of pipe. There's a catch basin in the parking lot itself, and it's directly connected into the Wareham River in that location. Oh. And then there is a much more extensive storm drain network that's in the main street here that collects water from a much larger drainage area, which I'll show you in a moment. And it ties into this pipe that goes through the park over here and discharges into the Wareham River. The existing conditions out there, I happen to be in the area right after a rainstorm a couple weeks ago, and not surprising to me because I had seen what that catch basin looked like in the parking lot, but indeed it does pond here after a rain event, and it was not a very large rain event, so I imagine this probably happens pretty frequently. The catch basin is in poor shape right now, and so it ponds here, even though the tide was quite a bit lower in this case. The water was ponding in the parking lot. And then this is just a picture of the grassy area alongside of the drive aisle and a manhole from that existing drain pipe that goes out to the river. So this is the drainage area to our site. This small area outlined in pink here is the drainage area to that little pipe right in the parking lot. So it's a much smaller area. It's about 2/3 of an acre, half of which is impervious. And that goes straight to the river with no treatment, although it is slowed by the condition of the catch basin there. And then this much larger drainage area is the runoff that is collected in the pipe network along the road and carried out to the Wareham River over here. And that is 6.5 acres, of which 2 acres is impervious driveways and road. So all of those surfaces are collecting dirt and nutrients and oils, and it is all being carried to the river with no treatment. So the goal of this project was to try to reduce bacteria and nitrogen loading, since the river is impaired for both of those, as well as other pollutants that might be in that stormwater. And as was showed earlier, these are the designs that are being proposed. One is what we call hard-edged bioretention, which I'll show you a picture of in a moment, along the parking lot. So it's going to be right up against the sidewalk in this area, and the parking lot is going to be shifted backwards to make space for it. And it will really not only treat the water, but it will address some of those flooding issues, providing a better outlet for this area. And then these other bioretention areas need to be much larger because, as you saw in the graphic, it's a much larger drainage area going to there. And the goal is to try to treat the first inch of runoff because that is the dirtiest of the runoff off of a paved surface. After 1 inch of rain, the water that comes after that tends to be cleaner because it's already washed off all the dirt off the pavement. And this, in fact, is not quite able to treat the full inch of runoff for the drainage area. I believe we were at 85% of that goal of 1 inch of runoff. So what do these look like? These are not deep ponds or basins. These will not be wet. They will not attract mosquitoes. These are very shallow depressions planted with native species. At the most, there'll be 6 inches of ponding within the features, and it will only be ponded 24 to maybe 48 hours after a rain event, and then it is intended to filter down through the soil. It's a special sandy media that you use for these, and the plants help to take up some of the nutrients and further filter the runoff. And then for larger storms, it will go, it will flow out the overflow and back into the drainage infrastructure. So these will not be standing water ponded areas. We also designed those larger bioretentions with very shallow side slopes so that there's not any abrupt drop-offs. It's a 4-to-1 slope, very gentle. And actually, in this one here, we are proposing some stepping stones so that people, particularly in dry periods, could hop along through there and interact with the feature. So this is not removing this area completely from public use and public interaction. And then the hard edge bioretention is very similar, but just what it sounds like. It's more boxed in, and it's used in more constrained areas like the parking lot where we're proposing that. This is just an example. It's not exactly like the one that we're proposing, but an example of what they can look like. And they are planted with native grasses and some wildflowers. Oh, that just went right away. This is another feature that would be similar to the soft edge bioretention. Some of the species that we're proposing are similar to the one shown here. So it can be very aesthetically pleasing for the area. This is another view of that same practice in a different season. So you can see it, different flowers will be blooming at different points, and there's native grasses and that sort of thing. And this is a different site with, again, some of the same species, a lot of grasses, wildflowers, some small shrubs and that sort of thing. And that was all I had. I'll take any questions on that.
Thank you. I will ask the commission members first. Alyssa?
No.
I know we had a walkthrough at this site, and Alyssa made the comment that we would be losing some land, grass area for picnicking and stuff like that, but we were going to retain the picnic bench, and part of the project would be when the retention basins are put in, all the land around them will be loamed and reseeded, so we'll have good looking grass as opposed to what we got now. But Ron, your questions?
Was there any feedback from historical or the Bessie family on this project? I think, was that part of the hang up of why they wanted to continue it?
Well, I just, there has to be there was a note I saw that talked about historic commission. This is historic district commission, which is differently than the historic commission. So Michelle,
Okay.
you need to talk to historic district commission, not historic commission. And there has been, I just got a note from Jim Eunice that where the retention area on the, on the right side facing the water was not part of the Bessie gift. It was, let me see what I find from his note. It came in from the Buzzards Bay Grain Company or something like that, and not subject to the same, what might be limitations from the Bessie donation. So Don't know where that stands. That's a lot more questions for Mr. Sullivan and the BOS and everybody else to
And
look at.
I
but-
just want to make this clear. Maybe people don't know, but that is not my Bessie family. That is the other Bessie family in town. So I just want to make that clear, that I have no ties to this at all. So it doesn't come up in any other further discussions.
Okay. Thank you. Carol,
No questions.
Mary,
No question.
Michael,
No questions. Thank you.
Kwame.
No questions. Thank you.
Oh, I think I've been very vocal, so I'm not going, is there anybody on the line, which I know there is, that would like to speak on this project? I guess, what's the best way to recognize them? Dave, can you see them raising their hands and unmuting them?
I'm not seeing anybody, but if there's somebody who wishes to speak, then they just need to unmute themselves and they can request to speak.
Candy, may I just ask a question?
Yeah.
You know, and going along with the idea that we like to have some picnic area and all that in the town, because there's such a dearth of areas that people can go and fly a kite or play catch or anything like that. Did the committee, Horsley, I'm sure they did, Horsley, look to see if there were any other designs that could be used for water retention and all that? I mean, are there other things? I think I mentioned it to David today. Somebody wrote me and asked me if they could make these retention areas underground and then they cover them over.
Michelle?
I'm sorry.
No, I was going to ask Michelle to comment on that.
Yes, there's a whole different suite of practices that you can use for stormwater, and some are best for just controlling flooding and water quantity, and then others have been proven to be the best for water quality. And while you can put some water structures underground, those work best in areas that you have really good soils and a large depth to groundwater so that you actually can infiltrate in that area. But also those practices are not as good for nitrogen removal. So having these surface practices with the native plants really adds that benefit. That can be above and beyond what underground structures can do. But at this site, that was not an option to meet the goals of the project.
Michelle, what is the water table here? It depends on the high tide, right?
Yeah.
Yes, we did a test pit in the area and noted the seasonal high tide. I'm trying to look on the plans right now. It is not jumping out at me, but it is not, it's not far below. It's probably 2 feet below where our practices are.
So we really
I can
would not
confirm
be
that.
looking at alternative of making these retentions a little deeper and a little smaller, but that's part of something else.
And then
Okay,
one other thing.
Michael, sorry, yeah?
We had talked last time about the tree that's there in the park, and with moving the parking back and the tree there, I think that the committee said they wanted to try to maintain that tree because it's a pretty nice tree. And we were told that your diggers would be cognizant of this, and you still feel very confident that the diggers can be careful about damaging it.
Well, I can't speak to how the contractors, whoever they are in the future, will be, but as shown on the plans, we identify them and show tree protection practices to be surrounding, and we'll do the best we can to, we love trees. Trees do a lot for stormwater as well, so we would love to keep it.
Thank you. Anybody in the public would like to speak for the project or against it or comment on it? If not, I would like a motion to continue this until the 17th.
Motion to continue.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, Alyssa,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Mary, Sandy, we're continued until the 17th. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
All right, next continued hearing. The Penrose Properties. That's next up.
Yeah.
Is there anybody here for this particular hearing?
Hi, yes, hi, Sandy. It's Charlie Adams, Rio Sacchetti, Ryan Kirchhoff here from Penrose, and then we have Rich Clater and Joe Henderson from Horsley Witten, and Amy Ball as well.
Wow.
We want to answer all your questions.
Okay, Mr. Bichette, we're talking about Littleton Drive, correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yep. So this project site is at 4 Littleton Drive, and this project involves the construction of a multi-unit affordable housing project, part of which is in the buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland. The site is a 16-acre wooded lot off of Swifts Beach Road, and the project proposed to construct 93 units within this development. Initially, when we first reviewed this, there was work proposed within the 50-foot no activity zone close to the edge of Flax Pond on the site. And we had discussed the possibility of pulling that work back so that that 50-foot area was preserved. So we do have a set of revised plans in front of us tonight, which you have on the screen at this moment, where they did pull the work back outside or right more or less to the edge of the 50-foot line, which I think was a really good change for the project here relative to our interests.
Dave, did you say you shared that screen?
I was going to let Dave
sorry.
finish. Tell him it's not there yet.
Oh, all right, hold on. Sorry about that. Thought I had put that up there, but there we go. So this dark line is the 50-foot no activity zone line. So again, previously there was work within this area, which has now all been pulled back, as you see here. So again, the plan proposes buildings, grading, parking areas, and stormwater structures within the buffer zone. So now that we have this revised plan in front of us, as I said before, I do agree with the changes that have been made. And we also did get some comments from the review engineer, Green Seal Environmental, who reviewed the plan change as well. And so I just wanted to ask the applicant if you've seen those comments and if you're okay with the comments in terms of what they've stated, or do you still have some further issues to address with them?
Charlie?
Yeah, so I'd like, if I could turn it over to our folks at Horsley Witten, they can comment on that, if that's okay.
Yep.
Sure. Joe Henderson here, Horsley Witten Group. And as you mentioned, there were some comments that came from Green Seal. We just got them today, I believe. The most recent letter was dated, and we feel like we can address those comments. We've gone through a couple rounds of comments with them through the ZBA process. So we feel confident that there's nothing major that can't be addressed. I don't know if you want to go through all of them, or but I don't see, and we don't see that there's any major deal killer type comments. A lot to do with things that they've deferred and allowed us to put off till our construction drawing. So we'll be continuing to work with them to refine the plans.
Okay. Dave, anything else?
I don't have anything else really. As I said before, I am happy with the change that they've made to the plan. We do have a DEP file number at this point for the project. So if the commission has questions, we can go through those and then make decisions from there.
Okay. Okay. Elissa, your turn. Questions?
Kathy.
Ron?
On those comments, Dave, that came back today, is there anything that sticks out to you of major concern from a conservation perspective?
I don't think there's anything major. I think there was a couple comments, Joe, that addressed some stormwater matters. Is that correct?
Yeah, there was some comments, details on some of the chamber systems we need to clarify. There was some talk of some areas we wanted to check just to confirm offsite runoff wasn't going to be an issue that in the large storm events, talking like 100-year storm events, nothing for the small storms. They're all contained on the site. But that's really what kind of stuck out to me, that we will still, work with them to make Green Seal comfortable.
Okay, and none of those would necessarily result in additional plan changes?
No, the most would be maybe a berm or a small little adjustment to the number of chambers that we're proposing in an area. For example, behind building 2, there's a set of chambers, C4 on the drawing if you're looking in the northern section of the site. We might need to add a few chambers in that area just to make sure that there's no issues with the runoff from that structure 400, I believe. But that structure will only discharge water in, like I said, the 100-year storm event. So that's, a significant amount of rainfall. But we're still going to go through and make sure that there's no, we address Green Seal's concern there.
Okay, and the only other comment that I had was on the edge of the 50-foot no activity. Some of the slopes there are a little bit steep, and I'm just curious how you propose to maintain those slopes. Is that just going to be seeded, or are you proposing some other means to maintain that?
We could do like an erosion control blanket or something like that, staked to the slope. I think that's what we would typically do in that case with those 3-to-1 slopes.
But ultimately, you're just envisioning vegetation on that.
Yeah, we haven't planned for anything other than vegetation unless, it's requested or asked for.
Okay, no, I don't have anything further. Other than that, I think that answers the questions or the issues that I had. So at this point, I'd be comfortable recommending the issue of the order of conditions with the standard conditions, and also maintaining that 50-foot no activity zone line as the limit of work for the future, so that way down the road, there's no proposed expansion into that area.
Okay, Ron, did you have anything else?
No, that was, I was just curious as to what might have been any type of major concern, but they were all addressed.
Carol?
No questions.
Mary?
No question.
Michael?
No questions, thank you.
Kwame?
Yeah, there's a couple of wetlands in that area, correct?
Yes,
not too big, but they're
Yes, there is a pond back here in this edge. Yep.
Yeah, I remember walking through there as a kid. That's all, and that's pretty big area. Yeah, I guess it is buildable.
Okay, I have a couple questions. Well, visiting the site, there was a lot of debris, tires, pipes, bricks, etc., that were in the wetlands. And I want to add to the order conditions that they will be cleaned out by hand. No machinery will be placed on the banking. Well, no, I can't say that because some of those pipes can't be moved by hand. Right?
Madam Chair.
Joe?
Yeah, there's a path there actually that runs through, as you know, there's a force main, a sewer force main that runs through that area. So you might have to come down those existing paths. It gets you pretty close to the edge of the pond there.
But some of those pipes, to me, cannot be moved by hand.
I believe there's a couple concrete pipes.
Yes,
that's
those
correct.
I'm looking at my picture, and that's
Yeah.
what I'm looking at, in what, 3 or 4 tires and a whole stack of, looks like building blocks or bricks that have been dumped in a depression.
Yeah, I think that's correct. I think you could use a small rubber tire type machine that might be able to get in there with pretty minimal disturbance.
Okay.
But we can definitely, I think, accommodate that.
And can someone talk to me about the potential vernal pool? We have 50-foot setbacks, or do we have 100-foot setbacks? I get confused.
I don't know, Amy, do you want to mention that? Amy Ball, our wetland scientist?
Yep.
Maybe we should let Dave discuss the local, what they have in their bylaw.
Our bylaws said 100, I thought, for a potential vernal pool.
Yes, that's true. It does say 100 foot on that as a local bylaw. So one of the issues that you typically have, though, with any of these 40B projects is that local bylaws don't always have to be adhered to. So I would say that's the issue that we would face with this. They have met the 50-foot setback, which is our main, setback requirement that we have. And even that, they don't necessarily have to meet if push came to shove, but they have met it. And so, it's kind of a sticky issue to deal with on this particular site because it is a 40B project.
And zoning has already approved it. Yeah.
Have approved it as of January 20th.
Sorry, I talked over you, Amy.
That's okay. I talked over you. Excuse me. It's the ZBA did approve the project on January 20th.
Yep. So we are limited to what we can do, and I'm grateful for their willingness to honor our 50-foot no work zone. Is there any other questions on the board? If not, I'll open it up to the public.
And
anybody want to comment on this? Yes.
And on the area where we have the 3-to-1 slope, where you're just going to plan to put a mat cover down, is that just for the winter time, and then you'll plant through it, or what's
The
going to
mat-
keep that?
The mat will be laid down, and the material, the plants will grow through the matting. The matting's got holes in it and stuff like that. So you'll never know that it's there. It will not be removed because it'll be doing more damage.
So the mat, has holes and everything, but are we thinking that it's just going to be grass there? I mean, sort of a natural grass fill in, or is this going to be native plants?
Madam
Chair,
Chairman?
Go
ahead,
Charlie. Well, I was going to say, we're open to your suggestions, what you guys would prefer.
Well, I was going to state that you have this is Rich Clater with Worsley Witten as well. You have a set in the set that was resubmitted has a full landscape plan in it. And then on the landscape plan, the landscape architect has identified a woodland meadow seed mix with a series of trees and shrubs along that bank. And that is on L300 of the plan set.
We'll wait for Mr. Bichette to bring that up for us. The plan set was too big to send it to us electronically. It failed every time he tried. So we're seeing the updated plans now as he goes through these.
Looks like, yeah, there you go. 300.
Keep going. Almost.
There you go.
Okay.
So if you look on that, you'll see the hatching along the slope next to the 50-foot is the woodland meadow seed mix. And then the trees are NS QC looks like. QC is typically a red maple.
Actually, Rich, I think NS
Scarlet oak, I'm sorry, scarlet oak. And what was the NS?
Tupelo, Nissa, Sylvatica.
Yeah, black Tupelo.
Tupelo.
Yeah. And I think that's it for proposed trees in there. And then there are a couple of shrubs though too along the edge.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Okay, questions from the public? I'm hearing none, and
I just want, excuse me, my name is Frank Mann. I'm with the Southeastern Massachusetts Pine Barrens Alliance. I'm here for the Borrego specifically, but every time I hear about seed mixes and tree mixtures, I become concerned with the fact that we should have all native species. We shouldn't have any that are non-native, especially in something like this, which is a major construction site on a project that has a pond within, close to 50 feet and vernal pools that you seem to be unable to protect. I would say that native species are critical to have in a development like this. That's all I'll say. Thank you.
Got a point.
Yeah, and I would just say that all of the plantings along the perimeter are native species. There are some turf grasses proposed in the lawns. Turf grass is not necessarily a native species, but there's seeded lawns. But if you look at that landscape plan off to the left of this sheet, you'll see all of the proposed plant lists that the landscape architect has proposed.
Thank you.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, Annie Hayes. I am curious about your reference to the 100-year storm. I've heard of many situations in the last few years where a 100-year storm happens 3 times in the last 5 years because of the change in our climate. What do you mean by that? And what date is that term from?
So I'll take a stab at answering that. So the data we're using is from an organization called the Northeast Climate Center out of Cornell University, and they update their precipitation records, I think like 4 times a year, and then post it to their website. So it's real data based on current precipitation trends. And so the data is the latest data you can get, number one. And it's approximately 8.6 inches of rain in a 24-hour period, which is an enormous amount of rain. But the likelihood of that occurring in any given year is 1%. And over a long period of time, it would occur 1 time every 100 years. But that's not to say you couldn't have a 1% storm this year, a 1% storm next year, and a 1% storm the year after, and then have 200 plus years of not having it. That's just the way it goes. We have built in a factor of safety in the design. We looked at the 500-year storm to make sure that it wouldn't get into anybody's houses for our butters. So we felt comfortable doing that. And we are reducing the runoff from the 100-year storm by more than 50% over what the existing condition is for the forested area with all those chambers and the natural storage that we're putting in. So we're proposing to cut it in half from what we would expect to see today. And so if we do get those more frequent or get an event or it happens more than once, we feel pretty comfortable that we've built in a factor of safety there.
That is a very impressive answer. Thank you.
Dave, can you pull that shot up so I can see the plant list? Nope, other way.
You gotta go
No,
down.
up. There you go. Keep going. Okay, thank you. Stop a minute. I know that most of the lawn area is definitely outside of our preview, but is there any way to put into a requirement that you do use only slow releasing low nitrogen fertilizer on all that green area?
Yeah, I think we would have no problem with that in a condition, certainly.
Okay, thank you, because doing all this work, I certainly wouldn't want more nitrogen going back into the water table.
No problem.
Sorry, I'm just looking at the plant. Anybody else wants to speak on this project while I look at the plants. Thank you. That's the garden club in me. Okay, I'm hearing no more comments and, we have, I think, a list of several conditions that would be posted on this order of conditions. So I guess we can take a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Second.
And I have a motion and a second to close the hearing. Alyssa,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Sandy, the hearing is closed. Now, who wants to take a stab at the order of conditions? Want me to try?
Yeah, you can try. I think you got a lot of notes there, Sandy.
Yeah, I've been, my pen, I see. Okay. Let me see if I can get them all in. Mr. Bichette, make sure that I don't miss anything. On the slope along the 50-foot no work zone, erosion control barrier with vegetation and plantings as designed on that number 300 or whatever that plan was, woodland seed mix and some trees like oak and others. That you maintain the 50-foot no work zone with a designation as such, like stones or some boulders or something to identify the 50-foot no work zone. Clean up the pond by hand or small machinery of all the debris that's along the pond and in the pond and on the pond edge, and a emphasis on fertilizer being slow releasing low nitrogen through the whole project. Did I get them all?
Yes, yep, you got them all.
So can someone make that motion?
So moved.
I have that
Second.
motion. I have a second. All in favor? Alyssa,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Sandy. Yes. Done.
Great. Thank you very
Now-
much.
Thank you.
Now,
Great, thank you.
I have a quick question that had
Sure.
nothing to do with this, but no, I'll ask in CPC. I'll wait. That will be a CPC question. I'll wait for that one.
Different hat.
Okay.
Okay. You know where to find me.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank
a
you
lot.
all.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
thank you.
Appreciate it. Appreciate your time.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. We have another continued hearing, Virginia Marshall. Okay, Dave. He's probably.
Yep, I'm just
getting
gonna
the Plan up.
just gonna get this plan up here for one moment.
Oh, the plan.
While he's bringing it up, is there anybody here representing this project?
Me, a Virginia Marshall. I'm
Thank
Jennifer
you.
Webster. I live with my mother.
And this is Brian with GAF Engineering as well.
Okay, bro, thank you.
Where is he?
He was the
He's
telephone
there.
number. You just can't see him.
Okay,
Okay, so this project site is at 41 Ellis Ave, and the project involves the construction of an addition and a deck to an existing dwelling in the buffer zone to a coastal bank. A 16 by 16 foot addition with an attached 16 by 24 foot deck is proposed, approximately 80 feet from the top of the coastal bank. This is a fairly site flat and there are no grade changes proposed. The addition would be on a poured concrete foundation and the deck would be supported on sonotube footings. Hay bales and silt fence would be installed between the work and the resource area. And we do have a DEP file number. The hearing was continued previously because the commission had wanted the area staked out in terms of the work proposed. That has since been done. So I would recommend the approval of the project and the issuance of the order of conditions with the standard conditions for this project.
Brian, anything to add?
No, I have nothing to add at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for the board? Elissa,
Not at this point.
Ron,
No.
Carol,
No, no questions.
Mary,
No question.
Michael,
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
Kwame. Anybody in the public wants to comment on this project?
I'm Virginia Marshall. The project I want to do. We were not going to put a poured foundation because we wanted it pervious underneath the deck. Under the addition.
Okay, because we were told they would be putting in sonic tubes.
Right. We're going to have that, but the area that doesn't have the sonic tubes on it is going to be pervious material. Huh?
They're all sonic tubes.
I
No foundation sonic tubes.
Excuse me, yes. Instead of it being a poured concrete foundation underneath the addition part, not the deck part, under the addition part, that's also going to be sonotubes so that it would be all open and impervious.
Okay, no, that's fine. Initially, I was given the impression that that was going to be a poured foundation, but that's fine. Either
go.
way, I would still approve the project as proposed.
Okay, anybody else to comment on this project? Hearing none,
Motion to close the hearing.
I have a motion to close.
Second.
I heard a second. All in favor, Alyssa,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Sandy. The hearing is closed.
Motion to approve the project with the standard order of conditions.
Second.
I have a motion and a second in favor. Alyssa,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Sandy. It's approved. And Brian, before you start any work with Mr. Pichette on your paperwork, okay?
Yes, he can send us the order of conditions. We'll get that recorded.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Yep,
Thank you. Next one, Samuel O'Mello. Is there anybody here to speak for this project as Mr. Pichette brings up the plan? Anybody?
Going once?
I believe this was continued because it had not been staked.
That's right. It had not been staked, and there was some question relative to a Board of Health matter, which I still have not received an answer on. So I'm not really prepared to move forward on this.
Okay,
I was hoping the engineer would be here to discuss, but since that's not the case, then I would recommend a continuance.
Someone make a motion to continue until February 17th.
I moved.
Motion to continue.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a second. All in favor, Alyssa,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Sandy. We are continued. Next one is Janice Ellis.
I think this one was because it wasn't staked also, correct?
That is correct. And I understand it has been staked. Anybody here for this particular project?
Will Connolly, Zenith Consulting Engineers.
Thank you, Will. Mr. Bichette?
All right, hold on one second here.
Okay.
Okay, so this project site is at 16 Dinah's Way, and the project involves upgrading a septic system in the buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland. There's an existing system to be replaced with a new Title V nitrogen-reducing septic system, approximately 74 feet from the edge of the wetland. So the new system is being placed between the road and the house at the furthest location from the wetland. There is some minor grading to be done, as seen around the proposed leach field. We do have a DEP file number for this project. This was continued because of having it staked out, which has since been done. So I would recommend the approval of this project with the standard conditions.
Will, anything to add?
No, I don't at this time.
Questions from the board? Alyssa,
None.
Ron,
No.
Carol,
No.
Mary,
No.
Michael,
Thank you.
Kwame.
No, thank you.
I have none. Anybody in the public wants to speak for this project or for or against this project? I'm hearing none.
Motion to close the hearing.
I have a motion to close the hearing. I heard a second. All in favor, Alyssa,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Sandy. Okay. It's closed.
I have a motion to accept the project with the standard order of conditions.
Second.
I have a motion. I heard a second. All in favor, Alyssa,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Carol, Mary,
Yes.
Sandy. It is approved for standard order of conditions, and will, before you start anything, get your paperwork from Mr. Bichette, okay?
Okay, thanks. Have a good night.
Thank you. Good night. Borrego Solar Systems. Anybody here for this project?
We had gotten a request to continue this hearing from the engineer, from the applicant. So I don't know that there's going to be anybody here for that from them, but certainly we can discuss the project since there's obviously some people on the line for it. So let me just.
Keep in mind, this is not the 61A discussion.
Yeah, let me just get this plan up here.
Okay, Ron, which one is this one?
This is my second youngest. This is, you want to say your name? What's your name?
McKenna and Bessie.
McKenna.
This is my 3-year-old coming in to say good night.
Good night. Everybody had cats in their lap. Now you got a person in your lap.
I got a human.
Yes.
Have sweet dreams, McKenna.
Say thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't know which one of the plans you're going to put up, but there's a lot there.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find it here. It's been continued so many times. I just got to figure out where I have it here.
This is the one that's on a little hill, right? On a raised area that will have to be taken down. Up against the pond with wetlands. You're right, it's been continued so many times. While you're looking, does the board have any questions? And then I'd open it up to the public to discuss any questions or comments.
I don't have any questions because I know there was some talks about making some changes, but obviously I can't comment on the changes that we haven't seen.
What were we changing? We did a 175-foot setback.
Was it something to do with one of the entrances, Dave? Or was that the other, or was that 150?
I
there
believe,
was
I believe that was for 150, but let me just see here. I think I have this up.
We have the 100-foot setback from the potential vernal pool. There was a road work within the 50-foot existing, which needs to be widened.
Oh, maybe that's, I think that's what it was. It was something to do with, a road or something.
Yeah.
road widening that needed to be done for better access on one side or what have you.
We're waiting. Is there anybody wants to comment on this before we, as Dave's bringing up one of the many pages of a plan? Okay. That looks like it. Okay. I'm not hearing any public requests
Yeah,
for comment.
I'd like to make a comment.
And you are?
I'm Joe Falconeri. I'm just really concerned about the scale of this project. Are you guys aware that site is, it's listed by the state as critical natural landscape, core habitat forest core. It's listed at 115 feet above sea level, has a gradual slope to 33 feet above sea level at Tohonet Pond. There could be major problems in runoff.
Okay. Now, Joe sent me an email this afternoon and I didn't get it in time to forward to this committee, and I will be forwarding your comments to this board when we're done with the meeting for next discussion.
I just want to let you guys know that this is a very important decision for you in your town, in our town. It's just, this is vital. Never mind 1,600 square feet of putting a patch of grass in. This is major destruction to Wareham's ecological integrity, and it's not a joke. So you got to really be aware of the runoff, what's going to happen downstream into the Wankinko, going into the Agawam River, how it's going to affect the herring fisheries, biodiversity, and a whole gambit of things.
And I will also send your comments off to Beals and Thomas. Now, has this been approved by zoning or planning? Zoning.
I don't know. I don't know that it has been approved yet, has it? I thought that was
It's still in process before the planning board.
Okay, because they did 150 and we approved 150. They did 27 charge and we approved 27. So 140 is still on the table at the planning. So, wait a second. So Joe, I would make sure that you got your comments off to the planning board.
Yeah, thank you. I'm planning on sending them my comments as well.
And watch for their agenda to make sure that you can be part of them and you can speak to it.
What is your stance on this?
Personally, I'm not there yet, and it's up to the board. But my personal,
Yes, your personal opinion.
I can't comment.
Well, I think it's the duty of the Conservation Commission to preserve and protect. This is a staple of your life's work. These projects that are going on. Just to let an FYI, these are big projects.
Oh, they most certainly are.
And two of them have already been approved, and they shouldn't probably have been approved. I would expect that the utmost due diligence is followed in hydrology studies and everything before even considering letting something like this go through.
Now, they've done all those studies.
Yeah.
I mean, the document we got from each one of these things were pages and pages and pages long about test bores and water flows and all that other stuff. So they've done a due diligence. I don't know if you've had copies of the Beals and Thomas document.
And the other thing I'd like to mention is, none of us, I think, are looking favorably on a project like this in terms of the level of destruction that would result from it in terms of the forest land and whatnot to put in a solar project. the majority of these sites are outside of the Conservation Commission's jurisdiction. We're reviewing these because they're proposing certain work within certain distances of the wetland. But most of the concerns that I think we all have, while some of them are relative to the Conservation Commission, many of them are more going to be geared towards these projects once they go in front of the MIPA review in front of the state, where the overall projects in terms of the overall acreage of deforestation can be more adequately addressed or represented as a concern. So, you know, the commission may not always be fans of whatever project comes in front of them, but we have to evaluate these projects in terms of whether they meet or don't meet the wetlands laws, not the overall impact to the upland areas. So, you know, so while we agree with many of the comments that I think people have on these projects, we only have a certain level of jurisdiction over these activities.
Thank you.
I'd like to underscore what Mr. Falconeri said.
And you are?
I'm Frank Mann from the Southeastern Massachusetts Pine Barren Alliance, and we're concerned on an eco-regional level. The eco-region that we're talking about, the Massachusetts Coastal Pine Barrens, goes from essentially northern Plymouth, Kingston, Duxbury, all the way through Wareham and onto the Cape and the islands. It's a globally rare ecoregion that is already tremendously fragmented and now under increasing pressure. We've recently done a conservation vision map, which offers every community the opportunity to look at the lands that should be protected by any means, by all means. The Cape Cod Commission recently created a tool that allows on the Cape, but it can be extended to the mainland here, what are the proper sites for large-scale solar arrays. And I would tell you, as Joe was underscoring with what he said, that if that tool was used in Wareham, you would not see any of those sites be called a likely site for a massive solar array. I'll speak to one particular issue, and that is what we have in this area is a rare, deep voluminous aquifer that we depend on and will be even more important as we go into the future. And that is put in jeopardy by these kinds of projects. They may individually be able to say, oh, this project has water at this level and it goes this way. But when you start to do the accumulated number of arrays and removing that sand and gravel, you're going to affect the aquifer eventually. And that's going to reduce, by the way, coastal plain ponds, which are a rare natural community and only found almost in this area alone. It's just devastating what can happen here. And if boards like yours don't find a way to slow these down, then no one will. If you say let the state do it, that's too late. When you get to the state level, you're talking about it's after the fact. If individual boards, planning boards, appeals boards, conservation commissions don't find a way to understand they're protecting their communities, and therefore there must be some way within their regulations, then we are lost. And in Wareham is being dumped on. Makepeace, which prided itself as a, you know, the wonderfully balanced, nature considerate development corporation, has completely given up that claim. And they are just devastating your community. It's not fair. You're not capable of fighting such a global entity. But you've got to find a way to do it, in my opinion. We're here to give you whatever help we can with conservation maps and experts and others to testify. But these things go through like 40B developments, and then there's nothing to do but count the losses. And that's all I'll say.
So I guess I just have a comment, question. I mean, we've been talking about the solar projects and things now for quite some time, and I'm just curious as to why we're starting to see a lot of advocacy come out at the back end of the third project that is before the commission, as it's been quite some time. So I'm just curious as to why now and not before.
Yeah. Good question, Ronald. It's just timing. I mean, sometimes the public just are not aware. and that's all this is.
Well, I
And-
mean, I guess I can understand that to a point, but, all of these projects that are proposed, we do put out due notice for the public to know what's going on. So, I'm not saying you're right, wrong, or indifferent. I'm just trying to understand why it's taken so long for anybody to take a stance on any of these projects, because this isn't the first one. There's been many projects like this.
Environmental
been
groups
over
have been saying that.
500 acres in the region.
Sorry. I'm sorry. One at a time, please.
There's been 400 and 500 acres since 2010. You're right, Ronald. And we are late to the party. We are behind the 8 ball. But it's our job is to preserve and protect these resources for our community. And that's what all your job is as well. And no matter the politics behind it, you have to let the ecology lead the way. And these are critical natural landscapes. The runoff from that 140 Tohonet down the Tohonet Pond, the effect it's going to have on Tohonet Pond, the Kinkle flows into the Agawam and Wareham rivers. Your rivers are the most compromised rivers. These estuaries are so important. It shouldn't be taken lightly.
Thank you. And I'm going to follow up a little bit more. I mean, this has been in front of the planning board for months and months and months. And I strongly recommend that you make sure you watch their agenda and talk to them on it, because they will approve the project. We're limited, as Mr. Bichette said, to discussions that are within our wetland bylaws. But planning approves the project. Okay?
We understand that. I'll mention that in Plymouth, what turned out to be a saving grace when the first array of solar arrays started to appear in the largest community in Massachusetts, Plymouth, a modification was made to the solar array bylaws, reducing them to a maximum size of 5 acres. Can you imagine Makepeace wanting how many 5-acre solar arrays that would take to do what they've done so far?
In Wareham has no bylaw.
Right.
And I'm aware of that.
And no matter the timing, does not change the brevity of this situation, just to let you know. It doesn't matter. Where we stand, where the public stands, Ronald, it doesn't matter. It doesn't change the brevity of it. And if the ecology here is what we're talking about for future generations, this is going to change the town. A lot of these things are going to change things for future generations. If you were born and raised in Wareham, you should be concerned about this type of stuff. It's real life stuff. It's not a joke.
I'd like to comment, please. Annie Hay.
Annie, can you wait a minute? Meg,
Sure.
You had comments in the comment. Meg, you want to talk next? Because I saw your comments.
Sure. Hello, commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Meg Sheehan. I'm a native of Plymouth. I did send in some written comments on behalf of the Land and Water Coalition, our citizen-led group here in the region. And I want to reiterate some of the comments that Joe made. I want to point out there are a lot of inaccuracies and lack of information in the Beals and Thomas report. And that goes not just for this one, but the other two, 150 and 27 Charge Pond Road, which have all been improperly segmented and separated for planning purposes. When they do go to MEPA, that's going to be an issue because you cannot separate permits for environmental review there, and neither should you here in Wareham, but that's exactly what they're doing. The cumulative impacts of the runoff of those total of 100 acres on Tohonet Pond and then downstream on Charge Pond. You just had somebody in here talking about probably $1 million project to try to remediate the water discharge and nitrogen problems in the bay. These projects from the runoff, the hydro seeding, the fertilizers that they're going to use, that is going right into the bay. That's a huge issue. They have not addressed the stormwater permit, and their report is a draft. It doesn't seem that the commission would be able to make a decision based on a draft stormwater report. I want to point out that the bylaw is actually very broad. If you look at section 2, it says the commission has jurisdiction over anyone who tries to build upon, degrade, discharge into, or otherwise alter wetlands, marshes, wet meadows, bogs, swamps, vernal pools, banks, reservoirs, lakes, ponds, etc. It doesn't have to be within 100 feet. You have broad jurisdiction to look closely at those plans and to require conditions that will protect your waterways. I'd like to point out that this is a huge issue statewide. I don't know if you saw the news today. The Massachusetts Attorney General's office just got a $1 million penalty from a solar developer in the small town of Williamsburg who discharged into wetlands from runoff from the construction and failure to properly manage that project. That's a huge concern here. The developer has not identified rare species. The term rare species under your bylaw is without limitation, vertebrate and invertebrate animal and plant species listed by the state, regardless of whether the site in which they occur has been previously identified by the division. What Beals and Thomas has tried to do on all of these projects, and I have looked at and studied all of their reports and applications, is to tell you that because this is not mapped habitat under the Endangered Species Act, they don't have to do a biological survey. That's not what your bylaw says. That's not what the state law says. They should be required to do a biological survey to identify every single rare plant and animal on this site. They have submitted a draft report on the long-eared bat and the northern cooter, two federally endangered species. This is their habitat. All three of these sites have federally endangered species habitat. You should be looking at that. It's covered by your bylaw. And the application is so defective, I don't see how it could be remedied. The permit should be denied. If it's not denied, if you're not going to deny it, then you should be asking for this information so that you can make a reasonable decision about the issues that are covered by your bylaw. And I'd like to really emphasize the misrepresentations that Beals and Thomas makes about the water quality. They imply that the water that they're going to be discharging all this runoff to is of high quality when the EPA reports, as I sent you the maps, show this is some of the most degraded water in your town. The Agawam River, as Joe pointed out, Wonkiko, Tohonet Pond, these are degraded watersheds, waterways. That means they're already polluted. They're telling you it's clean and so their pollution isn't going to make a difference. It is going to make a difference, and they should be required to have a hydrological study and detailed final information, not a draft stormwater permit. And these projects are globally significant. We would urge you to try to do everything that you can to put this land into conservation and to work with the conservation groups to preserve these globally rare projects. And it's worth noting in terms of cumulative effects that upstream in Carver, there are 3 projects under construction right now that all flow downstream. So what is the cumulative impact of that? And thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? If not, I'll ask if there's anybody else. I thought I saw, was it Alice that wanted to speak?
No, Annie, I would like to ask the commission if, given the extent of the prior woman's recommendations and comments about the deficiency of certain reports and what hasn't been done in this project that is under your jurisdiction, if you are going to seriously review these recommendations and act upon them. I think
the documents have been sent out to everybody on the commission, and we will be looking at it, and we will be discussing it. I will be sending the comments off to Bill and Thomas for their input.
Okay, good. I would like to also say that I'm a newcomer to Wareham. I've been around small towns right adjacent for all my life, but not but. And I bought the old Florindo farm, 17 acres between Faring Hill Conservation and Westgate, and 4 years ago. And I haven't touched it, and I don't intend to, and it will be in conservation restriction. In the 4 years I've been here, I have seen so many pine trees, so much of the forest cut down. And I just see the town going into a very destructive phase with mall after mall and forest degradation. I count trees when I see a home being built and clear cutting. They don't need to clear cut, but there's no restriction on it. And I count 100 trees, 100 pine trees. And these trees are so critical to our existence. And I am somewhat aghast that the Conservation Commission is only to deal with certain offsets and you know, the way it's being described. There's a life that is being lost, and it's our lives, because we cannot live if we are not a part of this great ecosystem of the earth. And it's not in our children's generation we're talking about. I'm 72. It's in my generation as well as the future, and it's just getting worse. So please, I absolutely commend the prior speakers, because this is the sentiment of so many people. And if you ask Mr. Bessie why people haven't gotten on board, I just learned from Liz Wiley in the Marion Institute. And as soon as I learned yesterday, I started researching, because I am aghast. And there has been a pandemic. I mean, this is part of our environment too, with climate. We have a pandemic for a year, and many of us have been just trying to hold it together. So I am remiss in not knowing when these plans come up, but I am certainly awake now. So thank you.
Thank you, Annie. And I will repeat, please watch the agenda for the planning board and talk to them, because they're the ones that have the major control over the project. But from a personal note, my husband calls me a tree hugger. I have failed. Okay, put this way. I've not cut down the pine trees around my house until they fell on them 2 years ago in a storm. I had 4 trees come down on our home. And it took me, I cried to remove the ones that were remaining because of the damage they caused. I mean, I don't like taking down a 140-year-old pine tree, but I've saved what I can, but I'm a tree hugger, and I will admit it, and it may very well come back to haunt me, but 4 in the house was enough to say, okay, I will cut a few more.
I have a
Thank you.
question. Excuse me, I have another question, if you would take it, or a question.
Yeah.
As private citizens, do you comment on projects even though you're on the commission?
I personally try not to, because that will make it a issue with the open meeting violation, that I would be prejudiced one way or the other before the committee speaks.
Mhm.
Is that answering your question?
So no, you don't.
I try not to, but I just did.
Yes, you did.
I just did, but it's not about this particular project.
You're
but,
a tree hugger.
So I'm gonna piggyback off of that. So, you know, one of our duties, no matter what type of a board we might sit on in town or anything, is we really have to separate our personal opinions from the bylaws or laws that are in effect for whatever committees we're sitting on. So no matter what our personal, I could sit here and tell you I don't agree with any of the projects. I could, but by doing that and then approving a project, you know, I can't sit there and say that I agree with it, and then as a private citizen say that I don't agree with it. I have to separate. Will I have that conversation behind closed doors? Absolutely. But that's just my personal feelings. But we can't allow our personal feelings to get in the way of the duty that we have to really go through the projects and decipher what's right and what's not right. Sometimes it's not easy. We don't sit here and just say yes or no to projects. There's a lot of work that goes behind every one of these projects that we see, and some of them we'll see for months and months and months, such as this project here. We don't take these things lightly, and we can appreciate the public's feedback. But to my point before, I wasn't saying that coming before us now to be against the project is right or wrong. I was just simply curious why it took so long for people to come out and say something on a third project that this company has put before us. But at the end of the day, our job is to understand as much as we can and take the information that's given to us and do our due diligence based on our bylaws and also the laws of the state of Massachusetts to make the best informed decisions that we can. Maybe we're not always right, but we do what we can to make sure that we are within the confines of the decisions we make based on what is the law, essentially.
I respect that. And I also would, for that reason, I would also like you to really look again and again at the woman from Plymouth's report, whatever it is that she's given you.
Hey, Melissa, you wanted to comment?
I do. I'm Melissa Ferretti. I'm the chairwoman of the Herring Pond Wampanoag Tribe, and I have a statement put together for you. So today, our tribal community continues the work of our ancestors, protecting land and water for our youth and for our future generations. As I speak to you today, Indigenous people and tribal communities throughout North America remain on the front lines of efforts to address climate change and to oppose projects that will be destructive to the natural world, our Mother Earth. The homeland of tribal nations in the United States are among those communities that are most likely to be targeted for projects that are disastrous for the environment and that have multiple destructive impacts on Indigenous people's lives. The Herring Pond Wampanoag Tribe knows this because we have been at the ground zero of colonial resource extraction for over 400 years. For over 400 years, our ancestral homelands have been clear-cut, stripped of sand and gravel, mined and paved over. As I also know very well, Indigenous people in New England are often overlooked or ignored with respect to matters of energy and resource development. Yet, at the same time, as a tribe whose ancestral homelands, along with the forest, fish, and other wildlife in the region, in Plymouth and the region, were used by the Pilgrims to serve their interest as colonists. We know that we and our history as a tribe are directly connected to the decisions that the town of Wareham makes about projects such as this. We know that any environmental injustices and threats to our community well-being and our nation are environmental injustices and threats to all of you in Wareham. Laws and policies give us as Indigenous people the right to be consulted when human activities harm our ancestral lands and our heritage. Under these state and federal laws that you spoke of, Indigenous people have this right to consultation, something very often ignored, as we are seeing here, I guess 3 times, as Mr. Bessie said now, or way more than that. So we call upon you in the town of Plymouth to acknowledge and adhere to the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. It was endorsed by the UN State Department in 2010, and it states, Article 32, number 2, Indigenous people have a right to good faith consultation and cooperation prior to the approval of any project affecting their lands, territories, and other resources particularly in connection with the development, utilization, exploitation of mineral, water, or other resources. We know that the land, the water, and the wildlife are our relatives to whom we have a responsibility. Most importantly, we know that we have a primary responsibility to our tribal youth to ensure that they and their children inherit a planet that has been nurtured by us. To us, the land, the water, and all the wildlife with whom we coexist are alive and sacred. It does not belong to us. We belong to it. I might add that the Ashby Wampanoag tribe, Hippo, Tribal Historic Preservation Officer, did a study and a recommendation in 2016 about the archaeological sensitive nature of this area, also ignored. So I ask you to really take a good look at this project. As Conservation Committee, I would think this is very important to you as well. So thank you for your time. I appreciate you allowing me to speak this evening.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else? Keep in mind that we have on our agenda the 61A property discussion.
Just quickly, Sandy.
Oh, hi.
Yeah, Kathy and Nancy here. As you know, Sandy, and the Conservation Commission and the Planning Board, we have been attending your meeting since, I believe, July 13th was the very first one.
Yeah, two of you have hung in there. Yes, you have.
Yes, we have. And we have tried to get other people to come. It has been very frustrating. And I will say that early on, the local newspaper was carrying articles. There were some letters to the editor. And then it kind of petered out. And I think, as Annie Hayes had said, COVID really didn't help, because people really, even though you went to Zoom, although we did go to some in-person planning board meetings that were kind of scary, people weren't involved. People were very concerned about their own personal health. They were more concerned about what was going on in their own households. They weren't going out of their house, etc. And it kind of fell off the mainstream of the newspaper and the news.
One of the problems, this is Nancy McHale, trying to understand the 300 and so pages of these very technical documents, that without having a real background in engineering, it's tough to understand what the deficits are. So, you're handed something and it looks like it makes sense, and that's fine. But until you get somebody that really understands it, you don't know. So I appreciate all of the input that the Conservation Commission has done.
Yeah.
And to try to get this to be back as good as it possibly could be. But the other question I don't understand is when do these go before a MIPA review? Tonight was, I think, the first time I've heard Dave talk about a MIPA review. It would seem that as these three projects, because you only ever see the one project at a time, so you don't see how they're all interconnected or how they're interconnected with the ones that are in Carver.
Dave, can you answer that?
Yes, I can answer that. So these projects are going to be submitted for MIPA review in the very near future. So I would advise anybody who's commented on these to be conscious of that and to be prepared to make comments during that review. So in speaking to the consultant, they chose to start with the wetlands permitting of these projects first to see what potential changes they might need to make as they went forward, and then submit projects for MIPA review once they had gotten past that stage. So they will have to go before the MIPA review, and they will be submitting those applications, I'm told, in the very near future, and those do have to be advertised. So you will have to keep your eyes peeled for these applications to hit their legal ads and whatnot.
Will those go as three individual projects, or will that go as one project?
That I'm not sure of, to be honest with you. I'd have to speak to the consultant as to how they're going to submit that.
Because that seems like it would make a big difference. That in conjunction with the fact that there's already an existing solar project at 160.
Right.
Okay.
No, I agree. And I think, the people at the MEPA level would recognize an attempt to fragment projects. And so they would really look at that particular issue as to whether or not this should be considered as one application or 3 separate ones. So, but again, I would have to speak to the consultant before I could give you a good response on how they're going to file that.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. If not, anything else? Because we'd like to move on.
Meg.
I can address the MEPA question. So as I noted in my comments, it does appear that this project is covered by AD Makepeace's mixed-use development that was approved by MEPA back in 2008. I was involved at the time when Makepeace put the 15,000 acres on the market and went back and forth with all the environmental groups, got some concessions, was supposed to do everything it could to protect the biodiversity at Frogfoot. Mass Audubon was involved, the Nature Conservancy, every big global environmental group. Since then, Makepeace has been slicing and dicing away at this development. They got the 160 Tohonet Road solar project that's under review, under construction right now, waived by MEPA. So that one got a free pass. They submitted the last 3 together. They did not have to do an environmental impact report. They have not done an environmental impact report under MEPA for any of these recent solar projects. And this is a complete 180 from what they were supposed to be doing under that original MEPA review. So the other thing that they do is the mandatory MEPA threshold is 50 acres. You'll notice that some of these projects are 49.5, and so they've segmented them into parts so that they don't have to do a mandatory MEPA. So this is, it's not, in my view, a fail-safe to be able to say this is going to get state level MEPA review.
This will get state level MEPA review. It will, because some of them are over the threshold. And as I said, I've already spoken to the consultant and they are going to be submitting ENFs on these. Whether or not MEPA requires them to do an environmental impact report is their decision to make.
Right. And if the record is any indication, they will not be doing an environmental impact report. Makepeace is extremely political, and you know very well that they're able to influence the secretary and the governor, and that's where the decisions are made as to whether MEPA is required. There were also several things in the original MEPA certificates, such as a study of nitrogen runoff from the bogs, study of greenhouse gas impacts of the land use conversion, and other things that have never been done under the certificates. So, MEPA might sound good on paper, and I'm not saying don't pay attention, definitely comment, and we'll be getting involved in that process. But you have a lot more authority under your bylaws and your wetland bylaw to protect these rare species than you're going to find at MEPA.
Well, I don't think I would agree with that. I think MEPA does have a lot of review power, and it depends on what level of comments they get. So if you people are vocal, as you have been at this meeting, and others jump on with that, then they're going to have to respond to those comments. So I would say you should look at that as an opportunity to voice your concerns and bring these issues up, because they do cover a much more broad area than the local conservation commission can.
Don't you guys have the same concerns though?
Of course we have the same concerns, but we don't have the same level of authority. We can't, the Conservation Commission rules under the Wetlands Protection Act. So the majority of this land is nowhere near wetlands. Okay, so they have much more broader scope to review the overall project than the local Conservation Commission does, and that's what I'm trying to point out. Of course, we have the same concerns, and I've already gone on record as saying I'm not a fan of these projects and don't think they're good for the environment. But that doesn't necessarily mean we can prevent them from going forward at the local level.
All right, I'd like to end that, end the discussions because it is getting late and we still have items on our agenda, including the 61A component. I'd like to have a motion to continue the hearing until February 17th.
Motion to continue the hearing.
Second.
All in favor? Alyssa,
Yes.
Ron, Carol,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Sandy. Yes, we'll continue it until the 17th, and thank you, everybody, for your comments.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the enforcement orders. Dave, would you like to take those two?
Yes, hold on one moment.
Is there anybody here for the discussions of 11 Barnes or 15 Barnes Street enforcement order?
Yes, I am, Anita Padula.
Okay. Mr. Bichette will be speaking.
Yeah, so this first site is at 11 Barnes Street in the Swifts Beach area. And what's gone on here is there's been fill placed on this site within the buffer zone to the salt marsh and also within the coastal flood zone with no approval from the Conservation Commission for that work. So I had gotten in touch with the property owner and asked them to attend the meeting tonight to discuss the matter so that the commission could address it and give some direction to the owner as to what needs to happen. As far as I'm concerned, I would recommend the removal of the fill that happens to be within the no activity zone. And then if the property owner wishes to try to permit some of the other material to be allowed to stay, then they would have to go through that permitting process. So that's what I have on it at the moment. And so I'll let the owner speak to some of that and have the commission ask questions.
Okay, Anita.
First, I'm sorry if we overstepped our bounds. This land came available to us to buy. There was the 3 abutters, and we bought it in November. And actually, we've been waiting for this for maybe like 15 years now. They were gonna potentially put up a house back there. So for them to decide the house wasn't going, and every day we were worried, like every time I came down to the beach, I'd be like, are they putting in a foundation? Are they? So when it came up to buy, the 3 abutters split it, and we each ended up with our own little piece. So now we have peace of mind. Nobody can build back there. Obviously we can't build back there. There's nothing to build. I just wanted to, me and my husband, with the COVID, we were home a lot this year. So in November, when we purchased it, we went down with my daughter, my son-in-law, and we kept working down there to get it level because it was uneven from where the neighbor was. We took care of it for years, the 20 years we've been there, and we've always maintained it, but never did anything to it to level it. And now we wanted to just resume it, how do I say, like with our lawn, like the way, just continue. Had a lawn there, but just not a great lawn. And it was a lot of up and downs. So then we leveled it off, and now we've got a little bit of loam on it, which we lost a little bit of it because the stones are showing now with all the rain. But we wanted to just seed it and have it just for just the beauty of the lawn and flowers and trees, and that's it, and peace of mind. But I had no idea that what we were doing was wrong because there was a house going there. So to the best of me and my husband, we thought like, well, the house isn't going now. Let's just make it all grass. So that's what we thought we were doing. I had no idea we had to go in front of the board for that. And I'm sorry if we overstepped our boundaries.
And I'm going to say, somebody sent me a picture of a little boy pushing a fertilizer equipment along this nice green grass.
That's
right near.
That's my
Yeah,
grandson.
I mean, this is what we're concerned about, is the nitrogen that's being built up along with the filling of the, if you wanted to make it even, a couple wheelbarrows could have taken in the depressions, but how much material did you put on this piece of property?
Well, it wasn't.
How many truckloads?
I never brought any trucks back there. I can't fit anything back there because I have no way to get to the back of my yard.
How much soil did you put back there?
well, what we used to level off, we used that, and then we had my husband's little dump trailer. We took that back there and we brought some loads of loom in to grade it off. But the little thing had nothing in it. That little Scott's thing that my grandson was pushing, obviously there was nothing in it. He thinks he's cutting all the grass.
But the
so-
grass there's a lot of fertilizer in that grass to look as good as it is.
Do you know approximately how much fill you had to purchase to make that? Because I saw before and afters, and the afters to the befores are quite different. Do you know exactly how much, if you were to put a guesstimate of how many trailer fulls that you brought back there?
Well, there were little dump trailers, so I don't know, maybe four. But my dump trailer played a role over there because every time we found some debris, like on the left side of my house, there was like a lot of concrete pieces or like bricks or like old junk metal along. So we just tried to clear that out. And then there was some little bit of like brush that was hanging on some of the trees that were just like, it was poison ivy, actually. We caught it all. And we got rid of that. So I was using the little dump trailer because I have no access to get into my driveway and to actually take off on anything. So we were using the neighbor's land and we were putting it in the dump trailer and hauling it out.
Well, getting
As
rid
far
of
as,
debris
as
is a
far
good
as,
thing.
as far as the volume goes, I think, when there's no snow cover, you can easily see the existing grade versus the filled grade. So, to me, it does look like a fair amount of material that's been brought in. Otherwise, if it was just a very minor amount, I probably wouldn't have even have commented on it. But to me, if I was to look at it and sort of guesstimate it in terms of truckloads, I would say, to me, it looks like 2 or 3 truckloads of material that's been placed there, because it looks like the elevation has changed by about 1.5 feet or so in that particular spot.
Yeah, I was thinking about 12 inches from where the lawn is now to where the coastal vegetation is. I was thinking about a good foot, but I was seeing it through the snow.
Yeah, it's hard to judge with any snow cover, but once the snow's gone, so I think, it can be fairly well seen in terms of what was existing and what it's been filled to. So like I said before, I do think some of that needs to come out of there, the material that's close to the marsh, because it may be within the 30-foot no activity zone. So we would need to have some sort of a plan if you wish to try to leave some of that or get it permitted to be left there.
I'd like to leave it there. I thought what we did where we stopped was the perfect spot. We weren't getting into any conservation. I didn't think, well, I'm not now that I've learned so much of this meeting tonight.
Well, I think that's the key, is what you thought might be the appropriate place to stop might not have actually been the appropriate place to stop. And so we need to look at that and make it known where you need to pull this material back to in order to be in compliance.
So is that going to require a notice of intent, Dave, and having an engineer go out to give them where everything is to figure out how we're going to remedy the situation?
I think I'd like to meet out there with the owner and kind of get the tour directly with them and get a better sense of it as to whether or not it should be a notice of intent or just a request. But I think, once we do that, I can see what the real volume is there and what they wish to maintain, that'll make the decision as to whether it needs to be a notice of intent or not.
So we'll wait for you to come back with a report.
Yeah.
So the alternative is that all the fill is removed, or Dave comes back with a recommendation for a notice of intent to determine the 30-foot no work zone. Is this along a river?
Well, this is along the backside of Mark's Cove, really.
Okay, so we don't have to look at 200 feet. We only have to look at 100 feet.
Right, yeah, and you have a width of marsh there also anyway.
So,
So the marsh is really the most critical thing at this particular site.
But
okay,
where is the marsh considered right there? Where we stopped? That's not. I own still another maybe 50 feet out, and we never even touched.
Right,
Okay.
you may potentially own some of the marsh, but that doesn't mean you can do anything with
Oh,
it.
no, I'm not asking to. Trust me.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is, what we have in our bylaw is that you can't do any work even within 30 feet of the edge of a marsh or a beach or a coastal bank or whatever exists there. So you may have potentially placed some material within that 30-foot area that should not have been done.
All that material that you see is material that we use because we had such a difference. Our land was a lot higher than Mike's, my neighbor on the side of me. So we had a lot of like rolls. So we graded it off. Not that we brought it in. The only thing we brought in was some loam to top it off so we can put new grass down. Nice grass. Now
Yeah,
it was
and
there.
like I said, that's what I'll have to go there with you to get a closer look and evaluate
Okay.
that issue.
okay. So you would like us to vote on I keep getting it wrong. What's the word?
To ratify.
Ratify.
Yeah, I need a motion to ratify the enforcement order.
Motion to ratify the enforcement order.
Second.
Second.
Alyssa,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Sandy, yes. Okay,
You
next
have-
one up is a 15
Okay,
Barnes Street.
thank you, Anita. We'll be in touch and we'll set a time to meet over there and do the
You'll
tour.
give me a call and let me know, or,
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
very much.
15 Barnes Street, is there anybody here for that project, for that enforcement order?
I don't see anybody on the line for this, but I'll just discuss it and explain. This is the neighboring property to the one we just discussed. And on this site, the owner had started to clear vegetation in the buffer zone. Did not do any filling or anything like that, but I did notice while I was looking at this site, the one we just reviewed, that the neighbor was also clearing vegetation back towards the marsh, obviously in the buffer zone and potentially within 30 feet of wetlands. So that's why I issued a cease and desist on that site as well.
Okay, I'll take a motion. Anybody here for, I already asked that. Anybody here to talk on this? If not, I'll take a motion to ratify the enforcement order.
Move to ratify the enforcement order on 15 Barnes.
Second.
Thank you. I have a second. Alyssa,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Sandy. Okay, we're gonna have some paperwork to sign. Certification of compliance.
So on this particular site, I did not get a chance. I thought I might get a chance to deal with this prior to the meeting. I put it on the agenda with the expectation to do that, but I did not get over there to do a final inspection. So I'd like to hold off on that until the next meeting.
Okay. Next one, conversion of 61A properties. When a landowner decides to take property out of a agricultural component and put it into a commercial, the town has right of first refusal. So what you have, when I sent you, was the documents from Makepeace asking for the town of Wareham to consider first right of refusal. Do you want to buy this land or not? And it happened to include the 3 pieces of parcel being proposed for solar. That included 27 Charge Pond Road. That included, sorry, is there?
No.
140 Tyhonet Road and 150 Tyhonet Road. The question is, we don't have the final say, but we've been asked to recommend whether or not we execute the first right of refusal and ask the town to purchase these 3 properties. Or say we have no, what do I want to say? Dave, help me out. It is a critical piece of property.
Right, so those are some options. So as far as this issue goes, We do see these every time an agricultural entity wants to take property out of Chapter 61A to convert it to another use. And so on some sites, it's not necessarily reasonable or valuable to try to purchase those pieces of property. But in this particular case, this is one where I would like the board to recommend that the town not waive their right of first refusal to purchase these properties. So that should be the board's vote. What the selectman does with that afterwards obviously is not within our control, but I do think that on these sites, the commission should make that recommendation.
Okay, comments from the board. Do you want to take the three of them separately or want to take them all as one unit?
I would have the same opinion of all three, so I would say discuss them as all one unit.
Okay. Alyssa,
Well, I guess it's what people do. I would recommend that the town take right of first refusal.
in other words, buy it?
I would think that would be one of the things
Okay.
the town could do, yes.
Okay, so you're asking you're asking us not to waiver the right of first refusal, not to, is that
Not
the
to
word?
waive it. Correct.
Dave, is that how I should be writing it? Not
Yes.
to waiver?
Yes.
Okay, Ron?
I would have to go with Dave's recommendation, simply for the fact that, these projects do have some potential high impacts to our town long-term. And if we can, as a town, protect any of that in a way that would be good, then I would like to see that happen. So I think that the town needs to exercise their right in this. And that would be my recommendation also.
Carol?
I agree with Dave.
Mary?
I agree with Dave's recommendation, yes.
Michael?
And the rest of the board so far to go ahead and try to purchase the land and same here.
Okay, Kwame? You're muted. Come on, Kwame. I know you're. there
I'm
you
sorry.
go.
I'm
There you
sorry. No, I agree with the board. There should be something in place for the town to look at this and determine the impact. So I agree.
Okay, so I will ask the board one at a time to give me a vote to support the no waiver. Help me, I'm sorry, I'm getting tired. That they do not waiver their right of first refusal. And Mr. Bichette, you will be writing this letter to the selectmen?
I will put it together for you as the chairman to sign.
Okay, so Alyssa,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Carol,
You look confused.
Carol,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Sandy, yes. So a vote 5-0-0. We ask that a letter be sent to the Board of Selectmen asking them not to waiver their right of first refusal.
Yes.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Bravo.
I just
Thank
want
you.
everybody to know that this is the same agenda that will be used in the open space on Monday and community preservation on Wednesday. So if some of you are on those boards with me, I'll be saying the same thing. Okay. The
Sandy,
next thing,
Sandy, I have a quick question.
yes,
Your open space meeting is this coming Monday?
yes, it is.
So planning board,
The agenda and Zoom information has been posted.
planning board is also that night.
That's the same, but we meet at 6. Zoning, planning board, it meets at 6. But to you, maybe planning becomes the more, I don't know what their agenda looks like as to how quickly 140 will be on their agenda.
I'll try jumping back and forth.
But
One
I
of us will
think,
be on the computer upstairs at one meeting and the other one will be down here.
I think I've got 61A as the first item on the agenda before we talk about the Swiss Beach Playground.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Okay, but monitor it in case I'm wrong. I can't remember. I did so many agendas this morning. I forgot which one was which. Okay, the last thing I have is we have 5 voting members and we can have 7. I would like to make a recommendation that Michael and Kwame be moved up into a voting position. And I would like to have some discussion and votes on that. So I need your thinking on it. I'll start with Alyssa.
I think that this would be a good idea. I think that both of them have contributed when they've been at meetings, which has been really nice. And they seem to follow through with everything. So I would say we would love them to join us.
Okay, Ron.
I mean, we had the conversation yesterday, saying, yeah, it's getting late. We had the conversation yesterday, Sandy, and I think it would be nothing but a benefit for the commission to have a full board of members, to be able to have these continued discussions on all of these different projects, to have the most votes possible. So yeah, I would recommend that we send to the Board of Selectmen to have them both put up from associate members to voting members.
Thank you. Carol.
I'm in agreement with Alyssa, Lisa, and Ron. And they're always here. They do participate way more than I do. They ask a lot more questions. And I think that would be a good idea. We'd have a full board. That would be a great thing.
Mary.
I agree that they would be a benefit to the board.
Okay, now, Kwame, would you be willing?
Yes, ma'am.
If you said no,
Michael.
Kwame, I'd be very upset.
Oh, Ron, I wouldn't say no.
Michael, would you be?
I would, Sandy, thank you.
Thank you. So,
As I would, thank you very much. And thank you for the rest of the board as well. It's much
Yes, thank you.
appreciated.
then I will be sending an email off to the selectmen, the Board of Selectmen, the Select Board. I have to keep saying their Select Board of our
Somebody's tired.
500. And if I can ask Michael and Kwame to send a email directly to them, letting them know your willingness to step up as voting members. We had some issues last time. We're trying to replace somebody on the board. They may ask you to fill out a new application. So be it, but I'd like to have you let them know you're willing to make this step up, and I will send out an email tomorrow morning about that. We have a lot of documents to sign. Dave, when would they be available in the parking lot?
I'm not going to be in tomorrow, so actually we're going to have to shoot for Monday for this.
Okay. So Monday morning after 9:30?
Yes.
So as you get in the parking lot, call Dave and he'll come down and sign with his mask on.
Yes, indeed.
Anything else? Anything else? If not, can someone say the magic words?
Motion to close the hearing. I mean, yeah, see, look at that. Motion to close
Wrong
the
one.
meeting.
I have a motion.
Motion.
I have a motion.
Ratify.
Motion
Adjourn the meeting.
Oh, to close the meeting. I heard a second. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye. Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, another long night, 9:30,
Hey,
9:22.
Thank you all.
Hey,
Thank you.
Dave, real quick.